Thank you, and can I thank you, Mr Speaker, for granting this urgent question. You would have seen the coverage all over the front pages of the paper, all over the TV, because there is genuine public concern about the availability of food. And as the Secretary responsible for our food security, and let's bear in mind that food security is national security, this is absolutely mission critical. And frankly, I found that response to be completely detached from the reality that's being faced on the ground, whether that's through our supermarkets or our farmers. And this idea that somehow it's all external forces. Of course, we understand the impact of COVID and the spike coming out of COVID. We understand the impact of Brexit. We understand the impact of Ukraine, and we understand the impact of energy prices. We understand all of that. And so the question then is, well, what's in the control of the government? What levers does the government have to make this better today? They didn't have to make changes to direct payments that undercuts farmers. They didn't have to agree to international trade deals that really undersells farmers in the UK. They could have made sure that farmers and food producers had access to the energy-intensive support scheme, but decided not to. They could have made sure that the quotas on labour were sufficient to make sure that food wasn't rotting in the fields. Exactly. All these levers that the government have were there. When I met farmers in Lancashire who were the victims of avian flu, really struggling with how they can restart and recover and rebuild their businesses, they told me there's not a single scheme in DEFRA to help them restart. We've had 1 billion fewer eggs like this year than before the pandemic on our shelves. We literally had Pancake Day this week and you couldn't buy eggs to make your pancakes. This is the result of indifference and dithering from government. And in the end, if the government don't understand that food security is national security and we need to end sticking plaster politics and have a long-term plan, frankly, there is no hope for the nation.
Secretary of State.
Well, Mr Speaker, I've set out, I think, pretty clearly what is going on right now. The Secretary of State, we have been on this transition, on the agricultural plan. It sounds to me like he's now abandoning that. That's in conflict with what the Leader of the Opposition said the other day. So that's interesting. A Labour split already within 48 hours. So in terms of that, I'm slightly surprised that the gentleman is clearly trying to play politics with a very serious situation. So in terms of, Mr Speaker, I think it's important to state about some of the support that has been given. We did make changes to the aviation influenza compensation scheme. We're very conscious. I think that the number of hens went down by about 4 million last year. There's still about 36 to 38 million hens, laying hens in this country. And it's important that we continue to have that discussion. The retailers have had pretty much a reliable supply chain, but we know this particular issue that's happened in southern Spain and Morocco is unusual, and that's why we need to have a resilient farming industry. It's why we need to have a resilient supply chain. In terms of that specific greenhouses, we're seeing the industry evolve. But I'm not aware that any greenhouse owner actually gets any basic payment scheme. It's a different way of doing that. In terms of the energy bill support has been open to various parts of the sector and continues to be so. I'm conscious that won't be necessarily the case from April, or be significant reduction. But I think the honourable gentleman needs to be careful about making sure that we continue to have confidence in the food supply chain, to have confidence, and this is that we have confidence in the food supply chain. It is important that people are careful. This is why the supermarkets have decided to try and stop a lot of the buying but to make sure everybody still has access to enough of the different fruit and vegetables that we have there. I'm led to believe by my officials, after discussion with industry and retailers, we anticipate this situation will last about another 2 to 4 weeks. It's important that we try and make sure that we get alternative sourcing options, and that's why the department has already been in discussion with the retailers. It's why there'll be further discussions led by ministers as well, so that we can try and get over this and try and avoid similar situations in the future. Even if we cannot control the weather, it is important that we try and make sure the supply continues to not be frustrated in quite the way it has been due to these unusual weather incidents.